Jacob is a musician based out of Southern California who is studying jazz guitar and composition at Cal Arts in Valencia, California. He's the founder of Long Beach-based fusion jam band, The Painted Birds, as well as a composer of many experimental and performative solo works. In this interview, we will be hearing about his upbringing as a musician, where he finds inspiration today, and his most recent released and upcoming projects. To start off the episode, here's a clip from The Painted Birds' 2020 release, Cosmic Bodies of Sound. Thanks, Jacob, for coming, being on the show.
Thank you, Jacob.
Where are you tuning in from?
I am tuning in here from Verde, California, near the California Institute of the Arts.
So, how did you first get into music?
I guess just my parents consistently showing me things. Those are like a lot of my early memories, just like music being played around the house and little toy instruments that I could play with always, which was very nice to have and stuff. But yeah,
but then
it was always
eventually you graduated to the
real big
instruments.
volume instruments.
Yeah, and then your life was laid out in front of
Propelled. No, I mean, yeah, I was just like always encouraged to take it up, and I wanted to quit a lot because I was stubborn. And I'm glad that my pops told me to stick with it and stuff. Not that I was like the most diligent practicer when I was like 7 to 13 or whatever, but yeah, I always had the guitar near me, I guess.
So, yeah, and then played jazz in high school,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
yeah,
similar experience to many of us.
for
Didn't
sure.
really know how to like read music or how to like practice an instrument properly or theory things and whatnot. That was the beginning of learning all that.
You started out at the new school, though. That's where
Right.
you first went. How was that? What was that
Um,
like, being in New York and everything?
as a kid coming straight out of high school, not knowing really what to expect, I was in the end, I guess, a little overwhelmed by it in terms of the city, just because I'm used to such a slow paced Southern California thing. And yeah, all the traffic and feet walking everywhere got to me, I guess. But in terms of the new school, I just kind of didn't feel like I was being heard there, I guess, by a lot of people, by the faculty, and just by like my peers also. I just didn't think I was really ready to be doing higher education yet. I think I was just like a little overwhelmed and dropped out about the second week of my second semester.
Now that you're at Cal Arts,
Yeah.
do you feel like you're being heard by the
Yeah, and
faculty
I
and
feel
the
like
students?
well, it still even took a little bit of time to find my footing here because I feel like I wasn't really too sure what I was trying to get out of the school, even in a way. Like I knew I wanted to become a better composer and become a better improviser and a better guitarist, I guess. I feel like only recently in this year have I kind of like actually found the places where I can do what I feel good doing on the guitar. Not good because, I'll put myself in situations that I'm not comfortable with often, but I feel like I'm finding a groove in that sense. And yeah, working with faculty, like you said, I've kind of found the people that support my ideas and also will like give me the shit when I need to be told like, hey, this is stupid or something, or like, hey, you need to do this. And also, yeah, it's a great space to one experiment and work with other artists too. There's not many places where you can really get into interdisciplinary art like you can here, which is unfortunate, but I'm so grateful that I can do it here.
So before you came to Cal Arts into the new school, were you composing solo works yet, or were you only writing songs for your band, the Painted Birds?
Only Painted Bird stuff, then.
I mean, it's kind of a weird line because those are your compositions, like,
Right.
uh, but
But yeah, they're also in spirit, the bands. I,
sure.
yeah, get a lot of inspiration from all those guys. Try to feed it back to them in the compositions and stuff.
We'll be right back after a short break. Here's a clip from the Painted Birds track Exhibit A off their album The Painted Birds Volume 1. Can you talk about some of the projects you've been working on recently? Like, one thing I wanted to ask you about was I saw this thing on your Instagram where you were leaving little notes for people, or it was like 2 bars of music, and
Yeah.
it said something along the lines of like, play this for a loved one.
Yeah.
How did you start doing that, or what was the intention behind that?
Basically, I have to rewind to another piece. An incident where I was on campus and I found someone leaving a bunch of blank business cards out, like hundreds of them. And I took them and I said, oh, I can write music on these. And basically, what I did first was I did a piece where I sat outside the main entrance of the school and I had a sign that said, will you cut my hair? If you do, I will write you a composition. And people would come up to me and I would say hello and like ask them what their name was and like kind of talk to them for a second. They would cut my hair. And while I was talking to them, I would write them a short composition. And then I would play it with my friend Gabe on the melodica, and they would finger the notes and put the melodica in my mouth, and I would hold the composition up and kind of conduct it for the two of us. And then I would hand the person the composition and say, thank you very much. But then, yeah, so that happened until my head was pretty much how it looks right now. Some people went for my beard. Someone almost went for an eyebrow at a point, but luckily Gabe stopped them. But after that, I decided that it would be nice if the people who received those little cards started seeing them up around school, just kind of like a little hello, another hello from me, kind of. And I just wanted them to be like, huh, what's that, pretty much. And even people who didn't get them, I just wanted people to say, huh, like, what are those? You know, who's doing those? Why are they up? What's it for? And
It's very intimate. It's, with streaming music and stuff, you're so far detached from any semblance of the person who's making the music being
absolutely. And it was honestly, it was like really touching doing the haircut piece because, someone would like do it and I would talk to them for a second and I would write them something and I'd play it and they'd actually be like, wow, I feel like that really does describe me. Or like some of the musicians would be like, oh, like you used like sharp nines, like those are my favorite intervals. And I would be like, wow, that's crazy. But yeah, so it was like nice. It was a really impulsive piece. Like I had thought of the idea the morning of, and then I just set everything up and just did it and was kind of nervous, but it was successful in my book. But yeah, and then that led to the poster piece, and ultimately the idea was that like I would cover the whole school with compositions and then get as many people as possible to play them. Didn't get as many people as I wanted because I wanted the whole school to just be like rumbling with sound, but those were high hopes, I guess. But I got a good number of excellent performers to do some, and I did some videos which are on my Instagram.
So I also saw this other project on your Instagram where there were probably up to a dozen musicians all kind of like separated from each other,
Right.
playing. I don't even know if it was like a graphic score, or if it was just completely improvised, but
Right, yeah. So
or what was that project?
yeah, basically I'm working on an experimental opera, for lack of a better term. Those were the first of 2 workshops that I did in the first week of February. Basically, yeah, it was just an excerpt of a scene from the opera. Basically, it was 3 presentations of graphic scores on globes, graphic scores on tape measures, and graphic scores that were just displayed in these cubicles, but they were just written on regular like Passantino notebook paper with charcoal. I pretty much divided the main gallery space at CalArts into 3 sections where these 3 presentations were kind of happening independently, with the tape measures and the globes. There were dancers that were controlling the scores to like affect the musician's interpretation of that score. And there were a lot of rules as to like what the dancers and musicians could and couldn't do. My role in it as a performer was I was like a pseudo conductor, and I would set egg timers at each of the 3 stations. I also had like a bell that I would carry around, and I would just basically tell each section when to stop and start. And it kind of developed into something more performative by the second night of the workshop, because there were some malfunctions with the bells and stuff. So I had to end up doing like conducting, and I was like writing notes on pieces of paper and holding them up to the ensembles. Yeah, basically that was just a chance for me to see some of the ideas that I had for the opera in front of me, and then workshop it, and then ask, okay, what was that? How does it fit into this thing that I'm trying to write? You know.
While you're starting to move in this new direction of composing, tell us a little bit about your work on guitar, like your band, the Painted Birds, and just your playing at Cal Arts.
Painted Birds wise, we were trying to go pretty hard back in the fall, trying to book a lot and play as much as we could. And yeah, I feel like as of recent I've burnt out a little bit on the booking, so we haven't had as many shows in the past couple weeks. But we are gonna release some music that we recorded last summer in Texas. Guess our like second studio project, which is also a full-length movie that has footage of us playing the record, recording it, and going to Texas, rehearsing, general band shenanigans.
That's awesome. What are some of the inspirations behind the Painted Birds music?
In the beginning, it was like Mahavishnu Orchestra, Weather Report, Return to Forever, you know, like Tony Williams' Lifetime, all those heavy-hitting early fusion stuff. And in this newer stuff, I kind of like reflect my budding interests in like chamber music and serial composing. So there's kind of some more 12-tone sounding things on some of the record. There's also a lot more like free improv than there was on the first thing that we released.
So aside from Zappa, and you listed a few other bands that are influences for the Painted Birds, what other music have you been listening to, or what's been inspiring you?
I mentioned earlier to you Robert Ashley, a composer who writes these kind of minimalist operas that are kind of hard to describe, but very hypnotic, I guess. And kind of funny, kind of dark too. Arthur Russell, like cello player and singer songwriter. Who else? James Tenney, composer. Moondog, composer, poet. Yeah, that's a lot. That's most of them. I kind of, listen to the same stuff a lot.
Here's a selected clip of composer Robert Ashley's Dust.
It's easy, and it's fun, and it makes me happy. We are everyone. It's easy, get a lonely one, a little money, time to spare. His wife is just not interested, she's been there. He still dreams of cooking, but there's nothing on the stove. He's still loyal and faithful, but he's all alone. The heart is like a flower, it needs a place to live. In the desert of his loneliness, he just needs someone to give.
Do you hang out or just talk with people in other disciplines?
Yeah, I've been working like with a lot of dancers recently. Like I'm composing the music for two separate projects by these two dancers at school, and it's been really like an experience, like learning how to interpret gesture. I've even notated music, but I've like wrote them like movement scores that are like graphically notated kind of too, which has been like a whole thing. Yeah, it's very inspiring. It's a whole other thing. It's so immediate, you know.
Is that like something that they've done before, or are you just introducing them to this whole new thing? Cool. New world.
Well, it was actually really interesting how it happened because I like am working with this dancer Andrea Soto, who's working on this piece about organs, and I wrote this score that basically had a bunch of little motives that were representative of different organs, pretty much at different like functions, like working properly or like backed up and like diseased and something, you know. And so there's like a section for the bass player that was graphically notated, and Andrea came up to me and was like, oh, I was like copying this down, like I thought it was really helpful, I thought like I could move it, you know. And then they started doing that, like moving like from the score that I wrote for the bass player. And so I was just like, oh, if you want me to do more of those, I'll write one for each organ. And so I wrote 5 different like graphic movement scores that I tried to make representative of each one of those organs.
Amazing. Would you like to promote any of your music that you're working on, or any other things that you haven't mentioned?
Definitely the Painted Birds movie album. My good friend and roommate and amazing drummer Greg Lewis and I are recording with our master teacher, woodwind player, composer, improviser Vinny Golia. We're recording at CalArts this Thursday. Just like an hour-long improv. So whenever that comes out, look out for that, because that'll also be awesome. Vinny Golia is amazing. Greg Lewis is amazing. If any of the weird opera stuff is interesting, I'll probably just be posting that on my Instagram, and that's about it.
Well, it was a pleasure to have you on the show, Jacob. And
the pleasure is mine, Jacob. Thank you so much.
yeah, thank you. And have a good rest of your night.
Yeah, you too. Talk soon.
To play us out, here's a clip from the new Painted Birds movie entitled Timesign.